Food poisoning vs. stomach flu, 12 ways to tell the difference. There's nothing worse than feeling nauseated to the point where you have to stay near a bathroom. What is the source of this upset stomach? It could be a virus, but it could also be bacteria or parasites from ill-prepared or rotten food. These can both cause similar symptoms, but there are some key differences how your body responds to a stomach bug, which is actually inflammation called gastroenteritis, versus food poisoning. Knowing which one is causing your tummy woes can also help you get the right treatment, so let's take a look at 12 things to know about both. 1. Signs of stomach flu. Generally, stomach flu comes on rather slowly compared to food poisoning symptoms, and it reaches less high peaks as far as illness is concerned. However, that doesn't mean gastroenteritis described by Healthline.com as inflammation of the stomach and intestines isn't unpleasant. The source notes symptoms of a stomach bug include diarrhea, fever, vomiting, abdominal cramps, joint stiffness, and even weight loss. 2. Food fever. Meanwhile, food poisoning can pack a more violent punch to your gut. Healthline.com explains some of the symptoms of food poisoning can overlap symptoms of stomach flu, such as the diarrhea and fever. Headache and sweating are also telltale markers of food poisoning. However, there can be other more extreme and alarming symptoms associated with eating tainted food. Those can include eye swelling and difficulty breathing, according to Healthline. In more serious cases, you may also have bloody stool or vomit, as well as passing out, it adds. 3. Incubation period. Another way to tell the difference is by how quickly the illness comes on after being exposed to it. If you're exposed to the virus that causes stomach flu, then you'll start to notice symptoms 24 to 48 hours after, according to Healthline. On the other hand, if you've eaten food that is contaminated with bacteria, viruses, or parasites, then you will likely start having troubles 2 to 6 hours after ingestion, adds the source. So if you're feeling very sick to your tummy, think back to your last meal as a clue. 4. Norovirus and food poisoning. According to Self.com, the norovirus is particularly nasty on the stomach and is actually the most common foodborne illness in the country. This virus hides in raw, ready-to-eat produce, shellfish, and contaminated water, it warns. The source says if you're projectile vomiting like that girl from The Exorcist, then the culprit is likely norovirus, especially if you have bad stomach cramps to go with it. However, just because you're not projectile vomiting doesn't mean you aren't dealing with another food pathogen. 5. Causes of a stomach bug. Women's Health magazine explains it's a bit more complicated than food poisoning being caused by food, and stomach flu being the dirty work of a virus. The fork in the road appears when you start considering how you're exposed to that bacteria or virus, it says. Gastroenteritis can be passed by any type of exposure, such as exposure to infected people, bodily fluids, clothes, surfaces, as well as food, it notes. The most common viruses associated with stomach flu are norovirus, salmonella, and campylobacter, it adds. 6. Recipe for food poisoning. Women's Health magazine says you're correct to assume that food poisoning is the result of ingesting a foodborne pathogen. As we noted before, norovirus is commonly associated with food poisoning and may have the most unpleasant symptoms. However, norovirus is not the only bad thing that can creep into your system if you're eating food from a questionable restaurant. It could also be salmonella, campylobacter, Clostridium perfringens, E. coli and Staphylococcus aureus, adds the source. 7. Dehydration danger. It doesn't matter whether you have stomach flu or food poisoning, constantly running the bathroom can deplete your fluid reserves pretty quickly. Dehydration then can become a complication, which can land you in hospital in some cases. Signs of dehydration can include dry mouth, dizziness, and pee that is dark yellow in color, adds self.com. It says that plain water is fine, but you can use an electrolyte solution, it suggests Pedialyte, to balance out nutrients that you've lost. Caffeine-free sports drinks can also be useful. 8. Debugging the tummy. The treatments for both types of illnesses vary. Heathline.com said the biggest concern for those with stomach virus is dehydration, so follow the hydration suggestions we just gave you. For best results, drink about 2 to 4 ounces every half hour to an hour, it adds. If you think you can handle it, start by slowly adding bland foods into your diet such as whole grains, bananas, apples, or plain yogurt, suggests the source. Stay away from alcoholic and caffeinated beverages, as well as dairy and spicy foods that can all agitate the problem. 9. Treating food poisoning. Heathline.com says you should be calling a doctor if you notice blood or pus in your stool, or you've had diarrhea lasting longer than 5 days, for adults, and 2 days, for young children. A mild case of food poisoning may respond well to rest and fever-reducing medications such as over-the-counter acetaminophen. A severe case may require steroids to help with heart and muscle issues, it adds. 10. How to prevent stomach flu. This stomach virus is not actually related to influenza, flu, so there's unfortunately no vaccine that can help keep it at bay. Antibiotics will not help treat the stomach bug because it's a virus and antibiotics treat bacteria, adds Healthline. The obvious prevention method is to avoid those you know to have the virus, which is not always possible. If you do come down with a stomach bug, wash your hands often and stay away from colleagues at work or school for at least 3 days after you feel better, it adds. 11. Dodging food poisoning. You can't control the preparation of food if you're eating at a restaurant, so try to stick to reputable establishments and hit the more popular spots if you're traveling. However, if you're eating at home, there are measures you can take. Those measures include making sure you sanitize food preparation surfaces and utensils, while keeping your hands clean. Follow the guidelines for internal meat temperature, 165 for chicken, and if you see food in your fridge that you are not sure about, throw it out as a precaution, says Healthline. 12. You can have both. In some unlucky cases, you might actually be dealing with both food poisoning and stomach flu, says Self. That's sometimes the case if you pick up norovirus from a contaminated food source. That basically means you got the stomach flu from a food-based source, it explains. However, the other clues such as the length of time it took the illness to set in could help you distinguish which one you're dealing with, so you get the right treatment.